Welcome to the NBA Coast to Coast podcast brought to you by thelines.com. It is Thursday. We've got 9 games here on this NBA slate. Nate and I are going to be running through our best bets in this video. Also have a player props video up with 4 bets in there as well. So continue to follow along and subscribe to that page. Also want you to head to thelines.com and use everything that we're putting up on the site for you guys right now, including that prop finder tool that we use each and every day to make sure that we're getting the best odds available to us on all of these bets that we are making in the NBA this season. Nate, let's go ahead and get into your first best bet here. And I believe we had a pretty good night last night once again, no?
Yeah, great night on the best bets. I mean, 5 hit.
Yep.
I whiffed on the player props, but usually we had been doing well there, for a week, really. But looking at the first bet here, I mean, it is the Bucks stops here. It is time to take Milwaukee as they are back home. -1 against the Wolves. I mean, 5 games under Doc Rivers. All 5 were on the road. This is a team that was already Jekyll and Hyde, home road. They're 21-5 at home. Obviously, I would love for Damian Lillard to be able to play in this game. And his status is still cloudy, but I mean, there are props up for him. No Chris Middleton. I don't think that matters. I mean, it matters. It's a factor, but they've still won 6 straight without him. They're 6-2 overall, scoring 126 a game. Tons of free throws, and that's really the nitty gritty when you look at this matchup. Is the Wolves are giving up the most free throw attempts per game in their last 5. They limit assists. They limit, paint points, but they don't limit Giannis Antetokounmpo. And when you give up free throws, that's what you have here. The last 2 times these teams met, I mean, Giannis went for 43, 20, and 5. And you say, oh, but there's no Cat and Rudy in that game. Well, the previous one with Cat and Rudy in there, Bucks still won by 13. They won by 9 the first one. Giannis had a triple-double, got 20 free throw attempts, and he helped rack up 10 fouls on those 2 guys. So it's not like they can just lock him up. I know the Wolves are playing better team defense this year, but lately, I mean, the defense is still okay. It's not as good on the road, for sure. I mean, they allow a 4% higher clip inside the arc on the road. They allow much more paint points. And, I mean, really, it's like, look, the Bucks offense has been struggling down the stretch under Rivers. It's going to struggle, or it's going to be touch and go if Dame can't play. Like, again, we would love him to be back in there. But what's the best solution when you're struggling down the stretch is face a team that's struggling even harder. The Minnesota Timberwolves in their last 5 clutch games on the road have a -35 net rating and 137 defensive rating. Last 9 overall, so including 4 at home. The 5th worst offensive rating. Like, this team is just bad in crunch time. Their offense, it does not scare me whatsoever. And while Milwaukee has their defensive issues, like they're back under this new scheme, this pack-it-in scheme, dare people to beat you from 3. Even though the Wolves have been shooting 44% from 3 in their last 5 roadies, they're still 1-4 against the spread. Like, their offense does not scare me. They don't scare me as a contender, as a playoff team, etc. Like, I'm fine fading them, especially on the road against a more desperate team. Like, I mean, the Bucks just absolutely need to get this right.
No faith in Minnesota, huh? Like pretenders.
Really.
Yeah, we're calling them pretenders here. I mean, on the road, maybe a bit more. I don't know what to do with the Bucks, man. I think without Chris Middleton, it's interesting that, like, yeah, nothing really changes, yet he's still given a lot of the blame for the problems that they're having this season, almost similar to like Klay Thompson, where it's like, because you can't hold your weight anymore, we're not as good. But I don't know if that's truly the case to the point that you're making. We'll see. Dame needs to play. I would say that Dame needs to play for sure. That's a huge part of this. And there's nobody on the other team that's going to be a great matchup for him. I guess maybe you try and stick Ant on him, but that's, they haven't really had this matchup yet with him on Milwaukee. So we'll see how that goes. But let's go. Let's see if Glenn Rivers can get things going here for this Bucks team. Let me go to that Dallas game with the New York Knicks, and I guess there's a chance that Jalen Brunson plays. But I'm taking the Mavs -3.5 before that news fully comes out. It's questionable. The reports from Tibbs, who could be a liar for all intents and purposes because he's that type of coach and he's not really here to make sure you know what's going to happen on his team. But he did say that Jalen Brunson was likely to miss days, not weeks. Very vague statement. Does that mean that he's likely to miss days, or does it just mean he's more likely to miss days than weeks, or what does that mean, right? And so it's still pretty vague in a way that he could play. But even if he does play, that might be bad for them because they rely on him so heavily that everything breaks down without him. what do you think is going to happen with a hobbled version of himself, right? And the fact that the medical staff is like, we would consider keeping him out for weeks is like, I'm guessing here, but it's Tibbs is the type of coach who has been known to be like, weeks, no, get him out there in a couple of days, whatever it takes. And it's like, okay, that's been the reports on him for his whole career, why guys don't like him. So hopefully that doesn't happen with JB, the savior of New York, tonight, because then I won't have a future in the Knicks for a while. But for this one, you know what I found that was interesting is like, obviously the first thing you look at when you're taking a Dallas Mavericks game here and you're trying to handicap it is how good is the other team against threes? And over the course of basically since January 25th, which is now 8 games for this team, which has been who have been without OG Anunoby, they have just completely plummeted in terms of their 3-point defense. It's actually wild to watch. The 3-point defense over the course of the last, like I said, 8 games now, we've got them down at like 24th in terms of 3-point field goals made. Against the corner three, they're absolutely terrible. Guess who shoots the most corner threes in the league by far? The Dallas Mavericks with super computer Luka Doncic just sort of getting into the lane and then finding guys out in the corner for 12 3-point attempts a game from the corner. That's a ton, by the way, because most guys don't shoot even one. And they have multiple guys shooting 2. So that is a big deal for them. And everywhere else as well, above the break threes, like the 3-point line has been a problem for the Knicks. And that's really it for the Mavs, what you're worried about here. The thing that would keep you from betting on the Mavs, even if Jalen Brunson doesn't play, is the down low presence of basically Hartenstein at this point for this team. But honestly, even Precious Achiuwa at this point, and even power forward Josh Hart have shown a propensity to be better than any of the starting the bigs that are going to be on Dallas without Derek Lively in there. And the Rook has proven to be super important. Luka's stats are better with him. The offensive stats are better with him. And the down low defense is slightly better with him on the floor. Still very bad, very, very bad, but better. And the Knicks aren't really going as far to the basket. They're still taking a lot of jump shots. They're still relying on Jalen Brunson to take threes and to pass out to the corners and to the wing as well. Without that, like, I don't know who scores for the Knicks, man. I love Dante DiVincenzo. I love Josh Hart. I love everybody that's going to be. I love this team so much. They don't have the ability to create offense without Jalen Brunson or Julius Randle, but especially Jalen Brunson. So without him, like, the Knicks are just a shell of the team that you would hope for that can like actually make a run at the Eastern Conference.
Yeah, I mean, this is the last shoe to drop. Like, if you don't have Brunson, like, you can't overcome all these other things, right? That, like, otherwise, I love this spot. Like, Knicks lost in Dallas, basically the only team to get them, aside from the Lakers, with Brunson during this hot streak. Yep. But, you know, now back home and you don't have your gun, you don't have the emotional lift to light up the Garden to make this like an even bigger revenge spot. And on the other side, like, Kyrie is the type of guy who just loves sticking it to a loud crowd, right? And one that's taunting him. Just did it in Brooklyn. Luka's playing very well despite his ankle issues. And we saw, that Dallas is a matchup problem. Like, the Knicks could not stop them, and they won't be able to score with them without Brunson. So if he's out, 100% endorsement.
Yeah.
So I will take the Magic money line and to beat the Spurs here and the under in this game. Bold. And that gets you plus money, plus 120. I actually hit an adjusted spread at minus 6.5 and got closer to plus 180. Because I think the Magic are going to win by around 10 points at least here. We saw this exact spot. When they were on their road trip last week, they beat the Spurs by 10. Game only totaled 206. They held the Spurs to 98 points. And now the Spurs are on a back-to-back, so it's not the exact same spot. They're on a back-to-back. Magic are back home after their road trip. And at home, that defense is fantastic. They're under an 8 of their last 11 at home. 7-3 to the under with the rest advantage this year. And 8-3 when they have 2 days off. They were just blown out in Miami. So I think that's a little bit of extra rest here. If you look at it, at home, they're 12-3 in their last 15 when they have Franz. One of the losses is a back-to-back Cleveland scheduled loss. Down the stretch, how do they win games? It's with their defense. Talk about this with Cleveland as well. They allow the 4th fewest points in the second half. They score the 5th fewest. So it's not like this game's going to run away from us. And the Spurs have changed the way they've played lately. I mean, I called this out to you when you were looking at Pelicans to light it up against them. It's like, no, suddenly they're okay defensively. Like, they have a league average defensive rating their last 8. And they can't score. So on the other side, that's why you have 7-1 to the under in their last 8 games. Abysmal 3-point shooting. The one thing they do limit is free throw attempts right now. And Orlando scores the third highest percentage of their points off free throws. So that helps me think, Orlando's not going to score like 120 plus and get this over the total by themselves. Spurs only scoring 104 in their last four. And the assist to turnover stuff, right? That's a keynote with the Spurs always. If they're not taking care of the ball and getting assists, that's when they lose. And the Magic absolutely number one team in terms of limiting that, especially at home.
Yeah, it's a good find. This spread definitely kept rising until it got a little bit out of hand. But I mean, yeah, I would still say 10 points is a reasonable expectation. Spurs on the back to back, Magic at home. We definitely seen a bit of a turnaround for the Magic once they finally got healthy. So yeah, no qualms with this one. I was looking at some unders for some Spurs players as well for some props, and I would consider that like just never know who's going to play randomly 32 minutes for that team. One of the three guys that could. I should mention that while we're talking about this Knicks team, they just got Alec Burks back in a trade, and they also, more importantly, got Bojan Bogdanovic on the New York Knickerbockers in the same trade that just brought them.
They ain't playing tonight. They ain't walking
No, they
through
ain't playing tonight. But Alec Burks and Bojan will be out there firing. They ain't playing tonight. It would have been, Alec Burks has been on the Knicks not too long ago. He could step out on the floor, but no, it's been long enough. So let's move on. My last one here that we're talking about. Oh, is the Dubs. I want to make sure I get in there because I got them at +7. I don't think you can get them at better than +6 now. I didn't think that would rise too much, so I made sure to hit it last night. But I still think 6.5 is a good number for this team coming off of that victory. I'm not, I don't love to just go, oh, they had a great win last night, so now they're just going to carry it over today to today. But I will say that there's a few things that have turned around for them in a way that I think if they're going to continue to attack things like the rim, first of all, with Jonathan Kuminga and actually be scoring points in the paint, that's a very good sign for them. And that means that they're going to have their way with this Pacers team that gives up all the free throws. They give up all the points in the paint. They give up everything down low, as we know, and they give up the most points per game to power forwards as well. So, I mean, I'm obviously looking at Jonathan Kuminga, second best player on the Warriors, to keep doing his thing because he is the second option now. That's why he's got 24 points a game over the course of his last 10. Even with Draymond, he actually has more points per game with Draymond and better stats all around. So this isn't a Jonathan Kuminga pick. This is the +7 for the Dubs. And I do think that they're going to have a better time shooting the three than maybe the Pacers have given to certain teams in the past. They have gotten a bit better down low with Pascal being down there as opposed to like having an Obi Toppin be your power forward point of defense, right? Which is why he's on the block if he does get traded. But and even Nesmith, who has been good, is also undersized against guys down low and has had that problem in one-on-one matchups in his individual defensive rating. So I'm looking at the 3-point line and I'm looking at the paint. And if you can't hit threes against the Pacers, you can score from everywhere else as well. They are in the bottom 5 in terms of field goals allowed all over the place inside of 10 feet. And the Warriors here, like I said, interestingly enough, they are going to the basket a lot more with JK in there. Wiggins and Green, I expect to both play because the Warriors didn't have to play their guys last night. Their starters averaged 24 minutes, and that's including Draymond, who played 18, and Kuminga, who played 29. That was the range of their starter minutes in there. Clay got 28 because when he gets benched, he gets really salty and mad, so they make sure not to take him out for too soon. But other than that, nobody really had to go very many minutes as they were up by 20 by the time the second half rolled around. So the other thing about the Pacers here is I think Halliburton's in. I was trying to call that last time where I took over on his assists because he is going to be playing, I think, a bit more in the second half than we've seen. He played 29 minutes when they wanted to make sure they beat the Rockets a few nights ago. I don't know why that would change. I think you can still expect 29 to 30 minutes from him, but there's not going to be 35, 36 in there. And I don't think they're going to leave him in to match buckets with Steph. Down the stretch, Halliburton himself has been pretty good when he's in clutch, but also the Dubs in the last roughly 8 games or so have picked it up. Let's say 5 games or so. 8. There was 3 in there that weren't good. 5 games ago, they turned it around, but that's also coincides when they started playing defense for the first time in 3 weeks, right? In the last 6 games or so, defensive rating dropped from about 126 down to about 110 in the last 5 or 6 games for them. So that's been a huge change for them that I think will continue if the Halliburton off the floor minutes have not been great on offense for the Pacers. So I'm going to continue to bank on that. Believe in the Dubs that they have enough young guys that they're finally playing that we don't have to worry about this old team on a back-to-back. And we can get some Trace Jackson Davis in there. Dario Saric should be available for more minutes because he has missed a couple games and should be well rested. So I am going to take them at +7 on the premise that it's just too big. These teams are not 7 points apart like that.
Yeah, I mean, I've been higher on the Dubs than you recently, taking them. And yeah, just kind of reading into the veteran team, both them and the Lakers seem like they don't want to just hit their stride after the All-Star break. Like they need to build some momentum into it.
Yeah.
Pacing themselves, understanding what it takes to pull out of this hole that they both built for different reasons. And the Pacers are just not they're kind of like the Magic last year. They're not a team you want to take as a home favorite. And in fact, 2-7 against the spread their last 9 as home faves. They're a team you want to take as a plucky road underdog, when Halliburton's closer to full strength and his minutes are going up. Like he might be a look in terms of player props here, based on the market where he's at. He was able to play about 30 minutes last time, right? And you got the assists in there. But in any case, he's still not full strength. The Pacers need him to be, and the Warriors. Yeah, I'm not worried about this back to back after what happened last night.
For sure. So that's all the time we have for you in Best Bets. Continue to follow along. If you would, subscribe to that page. And until we see you next, happy betting.